After more than 8 months of a thorough investigation, Salamatu Issa has been arrested and presented to the press this Wednesday in Bafoussam. According to police report, the accused was behind the abduction of a 12-year-old nephew in Betua, East region of Cameroon, on December 8, 2021. She had demanded a sum of 15 million francs CFA as ransom before the 12-year-old could be released. I received a message from the company commander of the Gendarmerie Legion in the East region about search efforts of a presumed kidnapper. Our commander here in the West region immediately demanded us to do everything possible to arrest this lady, who had ordered the kidnapping of her nephew of 12 years old, demanding 15 million francs CFA. The father of the boy could not afford 15 million. And when she noticed her nephew recognized her, she assassinated the child and dumped his body in a pit in Betua. The accused would later escape from Betua when she learned the defense and security forces were in search of her. Thanks to collaboration of defense forces and the population, she was this Wednesday arrested in Bafoussam as she attempted to escape to Nigeria. Elements of the gendarmerie have equally hinted it was thanks to their modern methods of investigation and the use of GPS that the accused was tracked from Betua to Douala and Bafoussam, where she met her Waterloo.
The transfer of the 15% state's budget to the local councils, as stipulated by the latest decentralization law, still seems to be far-fetched. According to Augustin Tamba, Mayor of Yaoundé 7 and President of the United Cities and Councils of Cameroon, the process is still under review.
Nous en avons parlé abondamment.
We have talked on it abundantly. We are in negotiation with the government, and we hope things will change. It is the government's promise, the wish of the head of state. We are impatiently waiting, so I think things will advance. As Cameroon commemorates the 11th edition of the African Day of Decentralization and Local Development, the local authorities express the need for more resources to boost the process.
The needs are too much, while the financial resources are too less.
Celebrated this August 3rd under the theme, Making Food Security a Key Priority in Local Development and Territorial Cooperation, a veritable call for concern with regards to the high cost of living at the moment.
And so the government have to encourage agriculture at the level of the municipalities. And for us, the municipality of the urban areas, we need the land where we can protect agriculture. Because normally our municipalities should stop to be dependent from the European countries, for instance. We have to have the financial resources in order to practice the agriculture.
They need to multiply cooperation with different partners to accelerate the decentralization drive in their respective localities.
The initiative is born from the fact that after over 30 years of democratization and political liberalization, the opposition parties can't really change anything.
We are telling to the opposition that it is actually useless to go to another electoral process in 3 years if, the general political and democratic ecosystem is not reorganized.
The launch of the Alliance for Peaceful Transition in Cameroon, dubbed ATPC in French with Olivier Billet, is directed to President Paul Biya, the actor, to take this decision and organize the transition government.
We can put in place that government of transition and national unity, which will organize things in such a way that we can have all those initiatives of reforms, which will lead us to a situation in which when we will have the future elections, if you are a candidate, you can expect that this election can be free and fair.
Invitation to all opposition parties to join the alliance. Some answered present during the press briefing this Tuesday in Yaoundé. The mobilization has just begun.
With those who have not been able to be here today, we will go and meet them and we will talk about this important issue.
The transition government of National Union and Public Salvation is destined to formulate and put in place all the institutional reforms for the resolution of the main problems contained in the present advocacy. All that will enable our country to go back to its healthy base, more equitable and more constructive for the future.
Cameroon needs at least 715,000 tons of wheat flour to meet local demand, but the current production of flour from plantain, cassava and sweet potatoes to substitute wheat flour is still insignificant and uncompetitive.
The challenges first was the fact that we are not properly structured, so that individuals are making small units of production, and it is very expensive, it's cost effective. Production cost itself is a very, very important element. So what we are talking about is how do we congregate, how do we aggregate our efforts in order that we solve all of these problems which are inherent in production and inherent in drying.
Those in the production and processing chain are convinced that there could be a change in the narrative if they are provided with improved seedlings, modern flour production units, and taxes exonerated on loans and local flour.
If the farmers are grouped into what you call the cluster plantation method, it becomes an industrial type of production where we can mechanize, where we can streamline costs, where we can streamline management costs, and at the same time we can be competitive like any other agro-industry.
Stakeholders in the agro-industrial sector meeting in Douala this August 3rd, 2022 are seeking ways to revitalize the sector as government plans to incorporate 20% of local flour in flour-based consumer products as projected in the 2030 National Development Strategy to reduce balance deficit annually by more than 20 billion CFA francs.
We have a project together with the MINEPAT in order to produce studies that will capture all the opportunities to invest in the sectors and how to properly accompany those sectors.
The study carried out by experts indicates that Cameroon needs 572,000 tons of plantain, 476,667 tons of cassava, and 572,000 tons of sweet potatoes, as well as reduce 40% post-harvest losses in order to meet the desired production of local flour.
Nursing or breastfeeding is a process by which milk produced by human mammary glands is fed to a child.
Breastfeeding, by the way, is free of charge. It is always available. We don't buy it. It comes with important nutrients, natural nutrients from the mother. It is rich in everything.
Moments for mother and baby to bond. Again, around the first 20 minutes after delivery. The position to breastfeed, strategic also.
The face of the baby is supposed to face the breast, tummy is supposed to face the mother's tummy, and then the head of the baby is supposed to lie on the mother's arm. The mother uses the nipples to tickle the lips of the baby. That causes the baby to open the mouth. The baby understands that there is food for me. As the baby is breastfeeding, there is this special heartbeats. The two heartbeats, it creates a psychological relationship, and the baby grows by knowing the mother in a very special way, and the baby feels safe.
And this gest should be done anytime, anywhere, when the baby needs one. Not forgetting the hygienic rules. 6 months, exclusive breast milk. What is recommended for mothers? No water except on condition.
They use the opportunity to keep their finances apart. Those babies hardly fall sick. And even if they fall sick, they get well soon. The recovery process is always so fast.
As breastfeeding lowers the risk of intestinal infections in babies, helps in more rapid maternal weight loss after birth, and delay the return of menstrual flow in mothers. These advantages notwithstanding, challenges today on the part of mothers and others leaves education at times not very effective.
Statistics reveal more than 20 million inhabitants, and some communities are self-defined as indigenous people. They include hunter-gatherers, commonly called pygmies, Mbororo pastoralists, and KD mountaineers. The hunter-gatherer represents 0.4% of the Cameroonian total population, while the Bororos represent 12% of the population. Evaluating the action put in place by the government and civil societies to promote the rights of these indigenous people, the main objective of this 10th edition of the Intersectorial Committee for Monitoring Programs and Projects involving vulnerable indigenous people.
An instrument which really shows us if we had done some significant step forwards for the indigenous person. What are the actions carried out by the government, by the technical and financial partners? What are the actions carried out by the civil society?
These vulnerable people still face difficulties integrating into the society and sector of education. One of the problems with the Bakas, the Bakola, and even the Bororo community face is access to education. We are here today to know what the government has put in place to help our children access to education. An occasion, therefore, to table our programs to suit them.
Now we are going to evaluate how far the indigenous people have been considered in the National Development Plan.
This in prelude to the commemoration of the World Indigenous People Day under the theme, The Role of Indigenous Women in the Preservation and Transmission of Traditional Knowledge.
The armed conflict in the northwest and the southwest regions of Cameroon since 2016 has exposed many victims to vulnerability in human trafficking. According to Chelsea Joseph, the Executive Director for Human Rights Association CRAPA, the government has done very little to curb the situation. Speaking during a press cafe in Douala on August 2nd, 2022, the Executive Director for the Center of Human Rights and Peace Advocacy, Chelsea Joseph, said that it is incubates in all to help vulnerable persons in the conflict zones. According to CRAPA, which has extended its branch office to Douala, the center in Bamenda intends to assist close to 40 victims living in the northwest and littoral regions displaced by the war. From their records, 8 displaced persons have been supported with sustainable livelihood activities.